know what's going on. They kept them fed and they kept them entertained. They gave them chocolate cake and love and hip hop. That's what they did. They said, if we can do that, they will become completely distracted from everything else that is going on with the world. There are so many ways that that concept that destroyed the Roman Empire is still going on today in our country. And we outlined a few ways from the last time that we were together. Now I'm going to review it because obviously God wasn't paying attention. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm going to review it and let you guys know what I mean by this. How much money do you need to make in order to be considered in poverty? $2? Okay. 25,000 a year. What else? Anybody else have any insight into how much money you need to make? Let's say, throw a number out there. Family of 4 is living on one income. How much money should that family of 4 be able to make in order for it to be considered not poverty? You were just looking at, why were you just looking at those pictures? Thank you. Thank you. When you go down and you apply for any kind of public assistance, what is the first thing that they ask you? How much money do you make? Why is that important? To see what you qualify for. What do you mean qualify? What does that mean? Huh? How much you're going to receive in assistance? Eligible for what? What kinds of things can you receive in assistance? Food stamps, medical, what else? Medical, cash, child care. What else can you receive from assistance? PRC. PRC. What is PRC?
That's for like families that have children that
So utilities, they'll pay your utilities, rent, car. What else can you get from PRC? I heard somebody say furniture, right? Furniture. What else? Vouchers, clothes. By raise of hand, how many of us have employment assistance? Okay. By raise of hand, how many of us have ever taken advantage of anything that Jobs and Family Services has had to offer? This could be today, when we were 5, when we were 3 months old. Okay. Now, since we're all pretty much on the same playing field, let me ask you, what are some of the qualifications do you have to have in order to be able to receive these benefits? Benefits. You gotta have kids. Can you just have kids?
some of them, not all of them, but some of them.
Kids, pregnant. What else? Unemployed. What else? Homeless. What else? Social Security. Abuse. What? What about people who have like learning disabilities? Will they be able to get benefits? I'm about to tell you why. What else? What else? Give me some more eligibility requirements. Let me ask you a question. Can being not married have you eligible to a certain? No, just not married. You still can. I'm not saying that you can't be homeless. I'm not saying that you can't be, that you can't have a house. You can still have a house, you can still be married. These are just some of the things. Some things that will push you over that line to where now you can get things. So, now we're talking about bread and circus. Keep that in mind, in the forefront of your mind. We're talking about bread and circus, which is kind of like food and entertainment and things. In the cycle of poverty, in order to receive these things, you have to qualify by being one of these things. Do these things push you over the limit into not being in poverty anymore? So the intention is not to get you out of poverty, but rather keep you fed and entertained. So when you're fed and entertained, we already talked about my addiction to loving hip hop and chocolate cake. When you're fed and entertained, I don't even hear the kids downstairs. I'm like, shoot, she is like really hanging from the shower curtain right now. I'm just wrapped up in this mess and not really paying attention to what's going on around me. When you're fed and entertained, that doesn't push you over the limit of poverty, but rather keep you in it. Let me explain something. When you have, let's just roll with, somebody pick one of these things that we see over here. Pick one of them. We're going to talk about it. Unemployed. That's a really good one. That's a really good one. Many of you already know that I was on welfare for a period of 1 year. I lived in Lake County at the time, and I had 3 children. I was a single mother and a full-time student, and I was receiving welfare benefits. I was not working. In order for me to continue to receive those welfare benefits, I had to show proof that I was doing certain things throughout that week, and then send them that proof in order to continue to receive my welfare benefits. Okay? So, I was going to school. I took 5 classes every semester. I was raising 3 children, and I was also working at the college part-time as well. So essentially, I was leaving home because I was taking the bus to school every day. Essentially, I was leaving home at about 5:45, 6 o'clock, in order to take them to daycare, drop them off at daycare, and then catch the bus to school, in order to make it on time. If at any given moment I had forgotten that sign-in sheet, dealing with all that hoopla I was dealing with every day, what would happen? I would get sanctioned. Explain to me what sanction means. They cut my benefits off. Do you know how hard it was to remember that? How many of you have ever had to remember those appointments and was in fear of being sanctioned? It is so scary because you are completely and utterly dependent upon them to feed your children. So because you're completely and utterly dependent on them, you better have that sign-in sheet. It got to the point where it was so bad that I said, you know what? Because I had a friend who was also on welfare. She wasn't working. And she wasn't going to school. just be easier if I just stay at home and then just did what she did, which is did a few searches online, took one of their classes every week, saying that I was job searching and just sent that in. Because I could pretty much do that for 24 months, I think. Wouldn't that be a little bit easier rather than having to try to keep up with those sign-in sheets? Yeah. I could just sit at home, watch Mini Falls, eat chocolate cake. I don't ever have to get up and go to school. Because really I'm doing my kids a justice because I am not putting their future in danger. I'm really just, I gotta feed the kids. And if I try to do this, it's just too much for me to try to juggle all these different things. It's just becoming too much for me to try to do that. It would really be a great service to my kids if I just sat down and then did that for a little while. Would it have been easier? No.
It might have been easy, but it wasn't
It wouldn't have helped me in the long run, but I'm not really thinking about the long run right now. I'm thinking about today. Would it have been easier? Honestly, would it have been easier? That's like going to work every day. Well, I beg to differ. Here's the reason why. My friend, she got to take advantage of this respite service where for 2 hours every day, her kids could go there because she qualified, but she wasn't working. So for 2 hours every day, she could, let me tell you, because she wasn't working, she could qualify for that. She could take her kids there. She got the maximum in food stamps. Her rent was paid for because she was in low-income housing, and she was able to get the cash assistance because she just had to just show that she was looking for a job. Her utilities were pretty much taken care of, and here I am, struggling every day, but her utilities were pretty much taken care of because she qualified for every kind of heat program or PIP or whatever. Did it have to be easy? Why? Mm-hmm. And you didn't have to do anything, right? You could just sit. Yes. So let me ask you guys a question. Even though it would have been easier, obviously you know that I'm being facetious, I know that. That's not the best choice to make. What I'm doing is I'm outlining how this bread and circus concept works. Does the cycle of poverty, does getting out of the cycle of poverty involve us being able to take advantage of every single resource that's offered to us and, just sitting down and just, letting everything just come to us and, letting the system pretty much pay for everything and then we just enjoy it? Is that how you get out of poverty? No, that's not how you get out of poverty. And a lot of times, and I don't know anybody in your situation as far as how their parents were, and I don't even want you to say it, but a lot of us, that's how our mothers did it. That's how our grandmothers did it. That's how our aunts and our cousins and our brothers and sisters and everybody did it. And so it's easy to navigate toward that because that is exactly how we grew up believing. Many of you know Ms. Roper, who works here, and she said in a previous workshop that she's always lived in the projects. That's all she knew, were the projects, because that's where her mother lived and that's where her grandmother lived. Everybody, all of her family, they lived in that radius of the projects. So when she moved out, That was the most difficult thing. It would have been much easier for her to just stay there. But it was the most difficult thing for her to go to college, graduate, and move out of the project. She was actually terrified to do that. To actually live off the system was terrifying to her because she always thought that she would be able to fall back on that. That would always be her, if she can't sell enough, if she don't make enough that month, if she can sell some food stamps and, get over that hump and then make rent. But to not have that at all was, very terrifying for her. So what I'm outlining here is the concept of poverty, chronic poverty, as a matter of fact. I need a reader. Please, ma'am, somebody. Who's going to be a reader for me today? I'm going to be a reader. If I had some, I got some candy in my office. You're going to get some. Guess what kind of candy it is? Chocolate. Reese's Cups. Oh, yeah. You did have some earlier. Okay. Before she reads this, what I want to do, this is one of my textbooks. Y'all know I love my textbooks. I love textbooks. But this was one of my college textbooks that talked about the social problems that we face in our communities because a lot of people don't really understand. I know when I read the statistics, I was so offended because I was every single one of them. I'm like, what they mean? I ain't gonna, the chances of me graduating college is super low because I was raised by somebody who didn't graduate from college. What they mean, just because I'm a single mother, that means that my kids have a 30% chance of going to jail. What they mean, I was really offended. But I was like, wow, despite how offended I am, it is so true. And I have to make my kids aware of that. I tell my boys, when you're walking, they're 5 and 10 now, though. When you're walking through, the streets or something like that, and if a police officer approaches you, you're respectful at all times. Do not get an attitude, because he can shoot you. It may not be right, but he can absolutely shoot you and accuse you of doing something you weren't supposed to do later. So, despite anything, you be respectful to all of them. But anyway, I'm saying all that to say, part of one of the case studies that I read about in chronic poverty, when I mean by chronic poverty, does anybody know what I mean? What I mean by chronic poverty? Really bad situations, huh? Consistent, exactly. So if somebody has, a chronic disease, that disease might go away to come back, go away and come back, go away and come back. So with chronic poverty, what that means is you're living check to check, but next month you might not be living check to check. You might have been able to pay all your bills and then have $30 left over. But chronic poverty means eventually it comes back and back and back. With people who have had chronic poverty over generations of their entire family, that means that mama, daddy, grandma, sister, brother, everybody has pretty much been affected by chronic poverty. This case study was talking about how children are affected by chronic poverty related to food. But one of the things is they wrote this case study and was able to receive a grant. So I just want, what I found to be very insightful is what they talked about how food relates to chronic poverty. Yep, that's the highlighted part.
The survey found that most people spend more money on food than any other regular, yet they were often forced to shop outside of their neighborhood, paying great prices for foreign elections or local community stores. According to the University of Connecticut Food Market and Policy Center report, low-income urban neighborhoods across the United States have 30% fewer supermarkets markets and their wealthy and suburban neighborhoods. One will, and when it comes to groceries, poor people pay more for less. The lack of access to adequate and healthy food result in something economic and hunger and is called food insecurity. Food insecurity is best defined as the uncertain ability of adequate assuring adequate nutritional food in a safe and acceptable manner. Household security is defined as the ability of a household to have firm, secure access to a sufficient amount of variety of food, and food security of all individuals in the household live a healthy, active, effective.
I appreciate it. How many grocery stores are in Spokane?
It's a little grocery store down
Okay, so let's come to an agreement. How many grocery stores are in East Cleveland? For people that say two, raise your hand. Okay, name the two. Wait, repeat that. Okay, does everybody agree? You don't agree? That's what she's talking about. No, right, the one down Shaw. That's what she's talking about. Do any of you shop there? Why? Where do you shop? How many of you live in Cleveland? Okay, where do y'all shop?
I go to the meat market. I hit the meat market on 70-something Superior. Go to Save Block. Of course, but that ain't I ain't my tip double.
Girl, don't tell me that. Where do y'all shop? You, and him. You shop in the meat market too? If it's where do you normally like to your grocery? Does you go to? Which one? The one on St. Clair? Okay. The one up Noble? Okay. Yeah. Where do you shop? Okay. So you go to Cleveland Heights and shop. So you go to Cleveland Heights and shop.
Think about it, y'all. Certain things you go in there with your mind is all set. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You gotta go in there.
So typically, what you guys are saying, as we are talking about, we're all familiar with the East Cleveland neighborhood. So we'll just use this as an example. In this neighborhood, do you have a variety of options to shop in? Can someone open the door for me? No. You don't have a variety of places to shop? Do you guys have cars? Do you drive? Do you drive? You guys drive? What if you didn't drive?
You go to your friends. Hey, one of your friends, yeah, they food stamps, they got no food stamps.
So you say, I will give you $30 on my food stamp card if you take me to the grocery store. And maybe no. She going to us and get a shopping cart. Yeah. They'll do what? They do what? If you spend a certain amount, they do what? Really? That is awesome. That is awesome. So would you say that places that had chronic poverty suffered from what she was reading, food insecurity? Would you guys agree? You look unsure. You would say no? You would say yeah? Why? We all gonna ask why. So I don't know why you look on. But I know you're trying to have one face, so you make eye contact. But no, the reason why I asked is because where I live, when I was going through everything that I was going through as far as public assistance and everything, I lived in Painesville. In Painesville, which isn't the greatest area, but which isn't the greatest area, but I had access to the convenience store. I had access to Giant Eagle, Marks, and Walmart, as well as Target, a whole bunch of places, all within like maybe a 3-mile radius. All of it was in Painesville. Yeah. So everything is right there. You don't even need a car. You don't need a car at all. In fact, a lot of people that live out there don't. Like, I had a car, but I still took the bus because you really don't really need a car. Everything is there. And that made a lot of people healthy because we didn't have to eat any bad food really. It was there. We really didn't really have to because we just had the grocery store right there. And then it was a Giant Eagle too, so we got fresh fruits and vegetables. Plus there was a Save-A-Lot too. So for instance, I didn't like grapes and stuff from Save-A-Lot because it spoiled really quickly. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this from here, and I'm gonna get that from there, and do this. Right. So I had a variety. But then when you go into a different area that doesn't have any kind of variety, and your only option is a convenience store because you don't have a car and you got 5 kids, you don't want to spend your food stamp card to pay anybody to do it because that's going to take away from your kids' mouths. So therefore, what are you going to do? You're going to walk. If you don't have a car, you're going to walk all the way up there to the grocery store and lug 20 bags. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I put my bag in there, gave a man $10, and I put myself all the way home.
You had $10.
I was embarrassed though.
But see, there's people, believe it or not, there are people that don't have $10. Like, I didn't have any money. When I say I didn't have any money, I didn't have any money. I didn't have any money. I had no money. None. I didn't have $10 to pay nobody to do anything. No money. And because I wasn't, my mother, she didn't have food stamps or anything growing up. So when I got on public assistance, it was on me. I didn't know any tricks. I didn't know that people want your food stamps. I had no idea. So I just didn't have any money at all. So options are very limited to people who don't have any money, especially if you were trying to do something with your life and you've been sanctioned. That is the worst feeling when you are dependent completely upon a system that sanctions you because you missed your appointment to establish paternity for these kids. You know, or something. Really, those are real life issues. Those are real life issues. You have to establish paternity. You have to keep appointments. Because I had a bunch of caseworkers.
I had a caseworker for my child support, I had a caseworker for my cash assistance, a caseworker for my medical assistance, a caseworker for my daycare, and a caseworker for, I can't even remember what the other caseworker was for, but I know I had 5. So I had to keep 5 different appointments. And I had to fax all 5 of those caseworkers information pertaining to my finance sheet for school. And if I left class early for whatever reason and forgot to get a signature, I'm in danger of being sanctioned. So it is very, very, very difficult to get out of that cycle of poverty. And one of the things that I'm dealing with now is one of my young ladies who I mentor. She's pregnant and she has a child already. And she has made the decision now it's easier not to work. Because when she was trying to work, that's when everything got cut off. Has anyone ever been in that kind of situation, or know someone who's ever been in that situation? Where when they were trying to climb out, then they're just like, you know what, it's too hard, I can't. Because now everything's being cut off. Now I got to pay for daycare. Daycare is $150 per week per child, and I have to work. So what are you going to do? One of the other things, and I'll just read this, is how poverty affects children. And anyone who was raised in poverty, I was raised in poverty even though my mother wasn't on any kind of living assistance. There were times when I walked in and there was no light. There were times where we didn't have food, and we lived in South Euclid. In South Euclid at the time, you know, that was like, South Euclid. But we were struggling. My mother was a single mother, and it was me, I was the youngest, and I had 2 older brothers. So we were absolutely struggling. But one of the things I wanted to read was how that poverty, and poverty affects your mind in many different ways, but how that poverty affects your children. Okay. Without proper food, poor children have high rates of iron deficiency, malnutrition, stunted growth, and lack of energy. While I'm reading this, I want you to think of something that you know, and it may even be you that are suffering from poverty. Without adequate housing, children suffer from overcrowding, allergies, and illnesses that can be caused by the cold, dampness, mold, roaches, and so on. They also have a disruption of sleep and study. Without sufficient health care, many chronic illnesses go untreated and serious diseases go undetected. Meanwhile, these children have little hope of improving their conditions through education, hard work, or some form of creative self-expression or intellectual activity. Kids who grow up in poverty have fewer resources and opportunities to experience the kind of enrichment programs that often allow middle and upper class children to explore creative interests, occupations, or dreams. You guys know I have 3 children, so during this time they were all with me, and the running joke, it's funny now, it was not funny before, was, "Mommy, you don't have enough dollars?" That was what I heard all the time. It was like, every time pictures, you know, came out in school, they would bring home the pictures like, "Oh, we gotta order pictures." And then they would follow up and say, "Mommy, but you don't have enough dollars." I'm like, "Yep, I sure don't." So tell them no. You know, and then at their daycare, they would have one time a month, they would order out. So it would be McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, or Wendy's, or something like that. And then all the kids were able to enjoy that. It was $4.50 a child. And so that was like $9 because the 2 youngest were in daycare. And I'm like, "Nope, we won't be doing it. Get over it. I don't care. You can cry, you can do all that stuff because I don't have it." And I didn't feel bad that I didn't have it. It was just like, you know, I don't have it. And we would sometimes go to the grocery store and get all a bunch of groceries, and then my car would be declined. And I'm like, I'm just knowing I ain't coming back. There's something wrong with the account, and I can't come back. Or it could be a situation where, you know, my son wanted to play basketball or go swimming or something like that. So I would try to find places where you can go free. But when you go there, there's these volunteers who got a bad attitude because they don't want to be there, and they just aren't quality. And I was just like, you know, the places would be dirty, and it would just be awful. And I'm just like, we'll just go to the beach or something like that. Summer was awesome because I could open to free stuff. But what that did, how that affected my kids was that now that we're not in poverty anymore, they still remember all of that. So even now, I still get, we don't have enough dollars. But then the other one would say, Mommy has dollars now. And she, oh, I forgot Mommy has, and it was that conversation happens because they've been so affected by, during that year that we were in poverty. And when you have every day of your life for 10 years in poverty, that really affects us. And you don't really realize how it affects them. Even now, I was thinking about I was taking a shower today. And I take a shower every day, but I was just saying I was taking one this morning. And the bar soap that I was using was like a sliver. And I'm like, why don't you just buy new soap? I don't understand. Why you don't just, get another bar soap and throw it out of the way? But because my mindset is you don't waste nothing, then this sliver has to be gone before I will put another bar out of the, and it's just that mindset, just those small little things really affect. Okay, so now I've given that. Can anybody else give an example of how they've seen poverty affect their life or someone that they know?
I think used to go out, cut grass. He would borrow the baby's line. He would borrow the baby's line. Go cut grass. Trying not to go get back on the street. I was really doing that and left all my family know not home with this. He'd go out, he would pay, he'd come home with like $80, $90. Then he's like, okay, with mine. We can put $10 in the thing. I'm going to go keep $2 for me because I want a more this stuff here. I want to see this stuff. You need to go to the store and buy some food. We can't go to the store because they cost too much. We got to go to the food. Now look at him like, you don't understand, you got a budget. And now he's 20. And the other day we needed some milk or something. It's like my cheap like crazy, like you asking for the budget, you don't need milk. Once a week you should have enough money to get a gallon of milk if you budget right.
Wow.
And he's pretty like.
So he uses his money wisely. She looked at me like, no. He's Jordan. No. He wasn't my money. He don't get no milk, but he'll get Jordan. But
that's just down to the school, and now my son now. We're always going through. I have a 10-year-old. When it was all the snow days, he didn't sit in the house. He bubbled up. He went and shoveled people's line on my phone. That by him.
wow.
He's out there shoveling snow, doing everything he can to make sure, everything. Now it's not so much for their needs, but everything else they know that it's not going to happen like this. Right. I'm not acting like that.
Right.
So he's going to make sure they keep doing things. When he was ready for some nutrition, he said, look, now it's time for a fight.
Exactly.
Now he's out breaking leaves.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think.
So they see the value of hard work.
Yeah. And the people in the neighborhood, I respect my neighbors so much because, crackheads come act first. Mm-hmm. And crackheads actually do, they don't let crackheads do it. My baby is still a girl too.
Oh. Yeah. Sister, you had an example? Right. Yeah.
I started off with a lot of things.
Right. Can someone else?
About maybe that I got online right now. I do want to work for it, so you're
Right. Right.
I compromise. One month you would get yours,
Right.
I could, you know, have somebody,
Yeah. And that's good, because you gotta get creative with that kind of stuff, because I know one thing is I got my hair braided, my cousin didn't have to braid, so I knew I couldn't get my hair.
that's
So-
what she's doing now.
So when you guys are in the midst of this situation, do you see any steps that you can take to get out of chronic poverty? If anybody has came out of it, can you give an example of how you came out of it? Work hard. Give me an example. Very well. So she, so hold on a second.
Your father's hard, but still, yeah, like child support on hold. Talking about making too much money. I lost where I was laid on a weekend on job 18 years ago. So also enforcement and the whole house. And I still got 2 houses. But nobody in them, nothing really going on. But it's like you've been holding the child support until they graduate. Yeah. But then after they get to 18, but they still like, you know, parental guidance. So I popped them off one day.